Hey guys, what's going on? So in this one, we're going to be covering the first half SOS boss for P5X Global version 2.7, and you may be able to see it on the screen here, but if you don't have the twins, you could be in a little bit of trouble this week. Not trouble, but things might be a little bit kind of brutal for you because the element multiplier this week is Almighty, and we've got one Almighty unit to pick from, so if you don't have them, there's not necessarily a great backup option available. But the team we're going to be running here is Wonder 1, Cherish 2, Cord 3, Twins 4 with Wind as Navigator, and Wonder is going to be running Ex Machina with Sandalphon, Dominion, and Jikokuten. And then the twins are in Sweeper form, which is Fire and Ice mixed with Bless and Curse skills. But yeah, like I said, there's one Almighty unit in the game right now, and if you don't have the twins, you're not going to be able to get the score multiplier. And to add insult to injury, these bosses also have a mechanic where once they get hit with an element, I think it's tied to like the other special effect where you get like additional final damage up from different element hits. So they're kind of trying to incentivize you to use different elements, aka the twins. If you don't have the twins, I would say like just go with On or Joker or really just your best sweeper unit. I don't think it really matters. These guys will start to resist an element after they've been hit, so you're kind of trying to brute force it the best you can regardless. But yeah, without the twins, I think you're just going to kind of try and do your best here. And without Cord, I would go with Leon, and if you don't have Leon available, you can go with Rin. I would imagine you're going to want to use Leon on the other side. And then if you don't have Cherish, you can try and, if you've gotten lucky maybe with Marion on the standard banner, now that she's in it, you can go ahead and try and use Marion. These guys hit pretty hard. Like, so if you kind of get unlucky with the targeting, you can certainly not survive through this fight. So you basically have to bring a sustainer, and Cherish and Marion are obviously going to be the best two options for that. Maybe Marion even a little bit better, but I think Cherish provides a little bit more in the way of like damage up stuff. But if you don't have either of them, you can try and use like a Soy maybe to draw aggro, but Soy might not do enough raw like sustain. So maybe just bring kind of your best healer that you can put together here. And as for navigators, it's kind of weird because Futaba would normally be on our A side, which is going to be this side, except Futaba's skill 3 doesn't work with Almighty. There are some people on the leaderboard using her. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're just like spamming the skill 2 or alternating skill 1, skill 2 every turn. I'm not really sure. And then the problem with Phoebe for me was I was only able to get her premium cocktails off for like one of the twins' 2 Almighty attacks because I'm A0, and it just kind of like didn't feel worth it. Plus with Wind, you can get, you're gonna see here, we're gonna do some like weird like downing and one mores and stuff. Nothing too crazy, but she definitely helps with that a lot. So I think if you have Wind available, she's like a really good option for this one. But yeah, as always, the twins content is like kind of weird and it's new. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll do my best to answer whatever I can for you. As for personas, we're bringing Sandalphon mainly for the Almighty boost from Machina. But I will say if you're struggling to survive, you can also just use Sandalphon's Devoted Guardian like in place of like whatever I do on turns 2 and 4, which are going to be like Tarukaja's for me. Because this also gives like a damage up. So it's not like a totally useless skill in terms of buffing. It's not just like you're wasting a turn to sustain. It's sustaining and also giving you some stuff. So I don't think Devoted Guardian's like a bad option regardless. And then Dominion's going to be doing most of the buffing for us here. He's going to be using Cohesion and Rebellion for me. And then I'm bringing Jikokuten to use Tarukaja to get like a little additional attack up for 2 turns when I use Tarukaja on the twins. But if you just want to stick with Dominion and use Tarukaja and then bring like Koryu in your 3rd slot, I think you can do that as well. This was doing like slightly better for me, I think. Could be placebo. I ran this like literally a billion times with a billion different things. So at this point, I don't even remember like what I've done and what I haven't done. But this is not mandatory. Like I said, you can just bring Koryu and use all the buffs on Dominion. And then my Cherish is running Faith and Peace, but you probably could get away with using the card set where it's like if you attack someone, I think it gives your team like 8% damage up for 1 turn or something. Because for me, Cherish is going to be attacking twice. And even if you have Marion, you're probably going to have to swap off the card set regardless because mine has Trust and Prosperity, so I would be overlapping with Cord. So there's a little bit of like card set swapping that you could do here if you want. My twins are running Nativity and Power, but again, like I said in my last video with the twins, if you want to try and swap to a specific card set, I think you probably could get a little bit more out of them. I'm just not doing that. Cord is running Trust and Prosperity, and then Wind is running Resolve and Labor. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything. Otherwise, I will see you guys when we get into the fight. All right, guys, let's get into it here. We're going to start off by swapping to Dominion and using Rebellion on the twins. This is probably going to be a long one because there's a lot of like one mores and like weirdness in this. Assuming we survive anyway. And then we'll go into Winter Fortress. But if you have Marion, you can just go ahead and do the normal like Marion skill 2, skill 3 rotation. Cord can go ahead and use Unison Notes on the twins. And then the twins, we're going to hold highlights, but we are going to go ahead and use the skill 1 on Vishnu. He's weak to fire, so we'll knock him down. And then we're going to want to target when one of these guys has insights. We're going to basically target them and not use the twins. We're going to use someone else because we'll knock them down. And I don't know if there is like a damage mult. I think we've been over this before in one of these fights, but I don't know if there is like additional damage mult, like if you are the last person to use a 1 more in a chain. I don't know if Baton Pass is like a thing in this, but placebo effect it is in my brain, so that's kind of what I like to do. But you're always going to want to finish the 1 mores with the twins because they're getting the big almighty boost. And these guys hit really hard. This is not the turn we really have to be worried about. The turn is turn 4, or like their 4th or 5th attack turn. I forget which one it is. But you kind of have to just get lucky with the targeting a little bit. But anyway, wind is up, so we're going to go ahead and use wind's skill 1. And now we can go ahead and use the twins. We're going to go ahead and use the fire and ice buff highlight. And then Wonder is going to swap into Jikokuten. I'm going to use Torakaja. Here's where you could use the Sandalphon shielding skill, or you could go ahead and just use Torakaja with the minion, or whatever other like buff you've decided you want to bring. And then Cherish can go ahead and use Hoarfrost Vow. I'll just pick the guy with the lowest shielding. I believe this does set aggro, but it doesn't really matter because they're all going to use AoE attack skills this turn anyway, so it won't really make much of a difference. We are actually, so basically where we would use Distortion with Cord, we're actually going to go ahead and use the gun because these guys are all weak to gun. So we're going to knock them down and try and take advantage of like the 1-mores and stuff to get extra points out with the twins. You should have seen some of the weird stuff I was doing at the beginning with this. I was using like Yanosik. I was doing all kinds of stuff to, like, knock them down and like try and get like an all-out every single turn, and it felt like I was just taking away from the actual damage I was doing by like focusing too much on this. So this is kind of the balance I've struck. But we can now focus on Vishnu. He's got insight, so the twins can do Almighty. This will knock him down. We'll do an all-out. And then the twins can go ahead and just use their skill 2. We'll target one of the other guys, not Vishnu. I believe their defense is like slightly lower. And yeah, any dodges you can get here, like, the better, because just the more HP you set yourself up with later, even though the shields will fall off, so I'm not really sure if it matters all that much anyway. But now Wind is going to go ahead and use the skill 3. Again, I don't think anyone's taking damage, but you would just use it on your lowest HP ally. And then Wonder can swap back into Dominion and use Cohesion on the twins. Cherish can reapply his shields. The damage up from the shields, I believe, is just last 2 turns, so you kind of have to just apply them every other turn. And then highlights are back up again, so the twins, I'm going to go ahead and use the Bless Curse skill. Bless Curse highlight, sorry. My brain is mush. I've run this a billion times in like a billion different ways. And then we are going to look and see if anyone has insight. Not that I can tell off the bat, so we can just go ahead and use the twins. If they did, I would probably just use Cord or something and try and knock someone down. Now Cord can go ahead and use her Catchy Hook on the twins. And we'll again use the Blessed Curse highlight. And then the twins can go ahead and use their 2 masks as 1. Again, you're going to have to change your rotation probably to fit a little bit better with the buffing on the twins because the skill 3. Like, you may just like want to use Cohesion like every other turn and then try and buff around that is probably what I would do at A1. And then we'll kind of look for insights. I don't see any, so I'll just go with the twins and use it on one of these guys. And yeah, next turn is going to be the one where we're like make or break in terms of surviving this. And then my Wind is back up. If your Wind's not back up, don't worry about it. You're just going to have to wait like an extra turn. But like you'll be able to use a skill 1 next turn and then skill 3 in the last turn. Essentially, because of the A6 Wind, I'll be able to use skill 1 here and then 2 skill 3s to finish it. But that's the only difference. So when I use skill 3 next turn, you use skill 1 and then we'll pick up on the same skill 3 on the last turn. Then Wonder can restart his kind of buff rotation with Rebellion on the twins. Cherish. We're going to start using Frost Vines with Cherish now because of Garden of Promises to try and get a little bit of extra damage up for these last few turns. Like, you can go ahead and use Hoarfrost Vow here, but the thing for me was I felt like it wasn't doing enough to like warrant losing the damage up, if that makes any sense. I'm going with Frost Vines, but if you're playing this like really safe, Hoarfrost Vow, or if you have Marion, obviously you won't have this. You'll just keep healing. I gamble, so we'll gamble on this. And then we will go ahead and just with the twins. Actually, no one has insight, so I'm just going to target the guy with the damage up that I just put on. And then Cord can go ahead now and reapply Unison Notes on the twins. And then the twins can go ahead and use the Fire Ice skill on Vishnu. And again, I don't think anyone has insights, so we'll just kind of try and target the guy with the damage up. And now we basically just hope for the best here. We kind of need them to just like target Cherish or Wonder. That's not good. That's okay. Okay, so we get lucky. Full transparency, this is not the first time I've filmed this. This is the second time, so I kind of expected to film this like 4 times, so I will take that. But like I was saying before now, I will start using Wind here. This is where you'd use skill 1 if you don't have A6 Wind. It doesn't really matter. I think Cherish is going to like shield everything out for us at this point, and if you had Marion, she would probably, you know, heal you up to a point where you can survive. But we're going to hold highlights because we want to save it for Chord's highlight at the end of this turn. But now I can swap into Jikokuten and use Torukaja on the twins. Cherish can go back to skill 3, which should keep us alive through the end of the fight now. Chord, I've clicked every button except the one I wanted to. We'll go back to the gun. If you can't tell, we're essentially just like repeating what we did the first time around. The only thing that'll be different is a little bit of the twins highlights at the end. Then we'll go ahead and use this on Vishnu again. Again, a lot of this is just like looking for the insight and just trying to take advantage of like the free knockdown that Wind gives you. And then we can go ahead and use Chord's highlight on the twins. And then we will go ahead and use the Bless Curse skill. I'll use it on the guy with the damage up. Now they're kind of back to like the Brainbuster things, which don't do a ton of damage. It's really just the single target Wind skills that are kind of going to make or break this for you. And now we can all go ahead and use Wind skill 3 again. Although I didn't get the 8, which is kind of annoying actually. I don't know what I did wrong here. I'm going to like try and cheese out an additional insight stack. So I'm going to go ahead and use Cohesion on the twins. We really just need this for like when Chord uses the highlight. And then Cherish for me is going to go ahead and use Frost Vines. I'll use it on this guy with the insight stack here. I'll just let the twins use it on this guy. And now we have it, so I'll go ahead and just use this on the twins. May have been better off just to use the 7 stacks earlier. I don't know what I did wrong. Now Chord can go ahead and use Catchy Hook on the twins. We'll get into kind of our final stretch here. We'll use the Bless Curse highlight. And then I went back and forth on this, like, quite a bit. And then I ended up doing, like, a rotation where I couldn't use the Bless Curse highlight at the end because I used it earlier. So I've kind of made the decision for myself, but there is kind of a way where you can do it, like, the other way around, where you don't use the Bless Curse highlight early, and then you use it doubled up here at the end. I'm not 100% sure which way I prefer yet, but this is just kind of what I landed on for the video. And then we can kind of finish this up with the skill 3. And we should get another, yeah, we should get one more of these. So just go ahead and pick the guy with the thing from Cherish. $35 flat. I think that's kind of like where I was at. I probably messed something up with the intel stacks, which is where the additional like couple 100,000 was lost on that one almighty follow-up. One more thing. But yeah, I think this is like okay for a 0. I'm sure you could do much better with an A1, just because you're like pumping out the almighty skills so much more frequently. And like I said before, there might be a better way to like exploit the 1-mores and stuff in the downs, but this was just kind of the best way I found it to fit in, since Chord kind of had like that distortion turn is kind of like a down turn anyway for her. And I just felt like it was more useful to use Cherish every turn because these guys hit so hard. And obviously Wonder's like doing most of the buffing for you, so you don't want to take away his turns, and the twins are doing the damage, so you don't want to take away their turns. There was only kind of one option left at that point, and it's Chord, but you may find a better way to do this. But yeah, that's kind of where we landed on this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know this is kind of like a weird one. This is probably one of the more unique SOS bosses we've had in a while. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything. I don't want this to be too long. I'm sure it's already like brutally long. And yeah, we also just hit 2,000 subscribers, so I appreciate all your guys' support. It's crazy how fast the channel's like been growing and how much support you guys continue to give on all the videos. So I appreciate it, and I hope to keep it up going into 2026. So as always, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next one, and have a good one.